Build smart, move fast, get the edge of last. This is the Catalyst.
You are listening to The Catalyst, the podcast by the Long Beach Area Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the Small Business Resiliency Series, brought to you by Don Temple Storage, Wells Fargo, Dignity Health St. Mary's Medical Center, Hyatt Regency Hotel, Intertrend, and Crown Castle. And now, on to The
welcome
Catalyst.
to The Catalyst, the podcast by the Long Beach Area Chamber of Commerce. My name is Stuart Takahara, the Vice President of Membership here, and welcome back to another edition of the Small Business Resiliency Series. We've been talking to small business owners throughout our membership and throughout the city about what's happening in their world. We have so much to talk about regarding just the general state of the economy that's happening in Long Beach. And so this is a great series where we can really dive into small business owners and hear it straight from them. And today I want to welcome Jax Diener from the Watch Me Sports Bar. Jax, welcome to The Catalyst.
Hey, thank you so much. And I love your enthusiasm. You are waking me up this morning. So
I haven't even had my coffee yet, but that's about to change.
I could use more apparently, but thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
You got it. So let's start here. Watch Me Sports Bar. Obviously a sports bar, but tell me about it.
Yes. So we actually made history as the concept of the first women's sports bar in California. We're primarily women's sports. We show everything here. We're all about inclusivity, and I was an athlete, so I am all about putting every sport on the TV. But what we've done is flip the script on a traditional sports bar where you might walk in and not see any women's sports on TV. We are the other way around. You will see women on probably every TV, and there may be one or two that's got the Dodgers, or we're hopping during NFL season. I mean, we show everything. But yes, that's what put us on the map, was this concept.
That's awesome. And so how long have you been in business over at Watch Me?
We will be celebrating our 2-year mark of being open July 26th. We opened by design to the Paris Olympics opening ceremony. So that was our grand opening day. And I mean, that was crazy fanfare. We've heard such great stories of people who waited 4 hours to get in, and lines around the parking lots and so on. It was amazing. And it was great because it was built in business to the Olympics. So to align to an event ended up working out really well for us.
So you opened up with a big bang. How's it been going since?
It's been a roller coaster, to be honest. I didn't really know what was coming my way. I had zero hospitality experience before opening Watch Me Sports Bar. So I didn't really know, and that's probably a good thing that I didn't know what was ahead of me, because had I known, I might have scared myself right out of it. But, the mission has always been to create a space for women to watch whatever sport they want to and just feel comfortable. And that really includes anybody. Whatever sport we have on, we want to bring people in and have them feel comfortable and safe. So I like to say all ages, all genders, all races welcome here. And it warms my heart when I see everybody in here checking all of those boxes. So we've had those moments where they've been spectacular, and we've been visited by Billie Jean King. She actually sent us that poster after her visit here. And other major Olympians, Julie Foudy, Abby Wambach, Cheryl Miller, lots of great people have come in. But we've also had those moments where we're wondering, where is everyone? And why is it crickets today? And so along the lines, I became an event planner. I learned that early on, to pivot and get people to come out of their home and try to get those butts and seats.
Let me back up real quick, because you said you opened up Watch Me Sports Bar with no hospitality experience. Does that mean you've never worked in a bar? You never worked in a restaurant prior to opening your own?
That's correct. Back in the day, in my early 20s, when I wanted to open a sports bar, and it wasn't about women's sports then, because women's sports weren't even on TV at that time. Mm-hmm. It was just about opening a sports bar. I went and I got my bartender's license, and I thought, okay, I'm going to be a bartender. I'm going to go this route. And I got one shot at it. One night I was a fill-in for a fill-in for a fill-in. And apparently I didn't do so well, so I was not invited back. And then I just let my career take me everywhere else. But I always had in the back of my mind, what if I opened that sports bar one day? So it's true. I never really worked a day in a restaurant, tried to in a bar for, I don't know, 3 hours or whatever my minimal shift was that day. But yeah, this has been a learning on the job experience for sure.
There's so much to go through on that because, you're investing all of this in just a dream and a vision with no experience. And I like what you said earlier, where you're like, had I known what I was getting myself into, I probably would have talked myself out of it, But here you are 2 years later. You've developed a great brand. You've brought in some really big heavy hitters, obviously, and you created yourself quite a bit of a niche here. So that's exciting. So let's talk about how you've gotten to where you're going. You said once you had to pivot from just running a bar to becoming an event planner. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit. Tell me about how you came to that conclusion, and is it working out, and what kind of events are you doing over there at Watch Me?
Sure. So, right after the Olympics carried us, right, for the first 2.5 weeks or so, and then the Paralympics followed. So we had built in business from the get. But that took us into September, October, and now it's the fall. People have gone back to school, and now we're starting to see dips in our clientele and our customer base. And this is the time where you really need to start to build those regulars. And we're having a hard time figuring that out. And I especially didn't have experience in any of this. But what I did have was some project management background. I have a thread through my entire career of that. So that's actually how we got open. I knew I had an end date and I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I had confidence enough to figure out that I could find my way. And sure enough, we did. But taking that same kind of mindset brought me to, I need to offer trivia. I need to have some music. I need to have sip and paint or whatever, anything that might draw people in. And it's tough right now. Any business is having a hard time right now with the economy and trying to lure people out of their homes. And it was actually, looking back, it was that November of 24, right after the election, was when we saw a big tank as well. And that we couldn't predict. We didn't know what was going to happen. And sure enough, we realized we had to come up with some creative endeavors. And over time, that's actually evolved into many more things. We created a party bus program where we, as a business, it actually takes butts out of my own seats and puts them in women's sports venues. But we get people to pregame here, and then they go support these athletes on the field, and then we take them, they save on parking, and they come back here. And we also create a podcast studio in Watch Me to support athletes, and we're still getting that up and running. We've built it, and we're working on getting some support to get it up and running and get some athletes in here to have conversations. So it's been about being creative, honestly. If we had stayed stagnant and just gone the path of what a typical bar restaurant does, we wouldn't be here right now. So I had to get very creative along the way.
I've been to some of your events that you have that great outdoor patio, that you can maximize. And that's great for some of the stuff that was over there. I noticed that when I was there, I forget exactly what the event was, but you had some high school girls soccer teams, I want to say, that were participating and everything. I just love that community that just, you don't normally get that in a traditional sports bar.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the difference. And I tell our team all the time, we are not your typical bar restaurant. We're different. We're built different. Our mission is to bring sports-minded people in here. And guess what? I was at a table the other night and all of these people were saying, I'm not into sports. And I said, that does not matter to me. As long as you're comfortable in here, that's what matters. And the people I was talking to, they were my staff. We had a staff outing, and it turns out a lot of them aren't into sports, but now they're starting to understand it. They're starting to understand that camaraderie, and they're realizing what the mission is that we're doing, and they're buying into it. And we've got the Olympics coming in a couple of years, and the World Cup is actually in a couple of weeks, so we have a lot ahead of us that we're excited about. And utilizing that courtyard too.
So let's dive into that. You mentioned your staff. How many staff do you have? Are they full-time, part-time, and let's start there.
So no full-timers. We do now have one AGM who is as close as we could get to full-time, but is not. And then everybody else is very much part-time. We've got about 20. And really, it's only that amount because they are part-timers and they are working multiple jobs. So they're not here all the time. Ideally, we'd like to have some more, solid every day of the week. We've got a certain person here. We haven't been able to get there yet. We've had some turnover. some of that was, turned out to be a really great thing. It brought us some new blood. It gave us some new energy and some new people who are into the mission and want to see us succeed. And so I feel like that's actually the toughest part of this business is figuring out the staffing. And I look at it because when I started and I didn't have this experience, it was my leadership skills that got me to here. And then all of a sudden, my leadership skills seemed to not matter in the hospitality industry. And that was really difficult for me to comprehend. And now I'm 2 years in, and now I feel like my leadership skills are coming back out. I'm becoming the person that I was back then. I'm understanding operations better, and I'm able to lead and manage in the way that I would like to see this place function.
I've talked to other business owners that over the past 2 years have either had to cut back their hours significantly or even close on certain days. Have you had to make any adjustments to your scheduling or operating hours from when you opened 2 years ago?
Yeah, we came in strong. I wanted to build the base, and if you can't build the base without being open. That was the strategy that I heard, and that was what I adopted. And so we kind of barreled through being open 7 days a week. We were open for lunch, and suddenly realized, or not suddenly, maybe not, soon enough, but we realized we cannot do that. We're not a lunch destination. So we dialed back and started opening up at happy hour at 3. We also decided to do winter hours and close on Mondays. But then we're a women's sports bar, and there's a league called Unrivaled, and they play not every day of the week, but they do play on Mondays. And how could I not be open for that? So that started us being open again on Mondays. So we're sort of following what is happening in the women's sports world, and the more and more leagues that are growing and the more and more that are on TV, the more opportunities we have to reel people in. So we are, the art of the pivot is alive and well here. We are definitely nimble, and we try to not make too many changes because I've also heard that confuses the customers, right? We don't want people to say, well, I thought you were open on this day, but you're not. So we're trying to be as consistent for as long a period of time as we can. But at the same time, we really have to look at the numbers, and we have to make changes if the people aren't coming in.
You actually built in a really good base, though, just by niching yourself into women's sports. A lot of sports bars, they say, hey, I'll just throw a bunch of TVs on the screen and serve up, cheap beer. And I've got, and that's a winning recipe. And it's not, you have to be more than that nowadays.
You do. And, some would say there's cons to that because we are niche. We are women's sports. But what I like to remind people of is that we are predominantly women's sports. We're space. We're more about a space where people can come and feel comfortable. And I just heard this from a couple that were in the other night. I think they had their son was playing down at AIM, not too far from us in Seal Beach. And they were coming in here while he was practicing. And they said, this is just a really comfortable, homey atmosphere, but it's nice and clean and sleek. And that's exactly what I've tried to create, is something like that where people can just come and be, whether they're here to watch a sport or just here for some good food or, the energy and the vibe in here.
So you've built this great little brand. You got your bar. Everything is this. You finally realized your dream from, when you were in your 20s. But obviously, you make it sound so easy. Like, I got a great concept. I got this. You make it sound so easy. But obviously, behind every success story, there's a story of perseverance. There's a story of, oh my gosh, what did I want? I just was kind of curious if you wanted to share something that may have happened to you when you were going through the planning process, the building process, or even once you got open, or anything along those lines. Because everybody always says, I've heard that many, many times, if I'd known what I was getting myself into, I don't know if I would have done it.
Yeah. Yes. God, I have so many. Somebody just said to me the other day, well, you look like things are just going so great. You make it look so easy. I'm like, well, I'm glad I'm coming across that way, but underneath the surface is quite different. It's incredibly stressful. I mean, we've had some plumbing issues here that we inherited. We've had a lot of equipment that we inherited that have created a lot of issues and maintenance and money, unforeseen money that has gone out. We had no way to plan for that. So had I known, maybe I would have put in a much bigger budget for maintenance and repairs and things like that than I did at the start. So it's been honestly a struggle because we've had to put all this money out that we didn't anticipate. And some of that isn't even our responsibility. And we're just trying to play nice with our property manager and who we're working with over here. And, we feel like we are a necessary part of Long Beach marketplace. If you don't have Trader Joe's over here, no one's coming. Some other people might come over to Bevmo, but there's no restaurant over here right now other than us. And we feel like we are bringing livelihood to this marketplace. And so we hope that our property management, our landlord, everybody notices what we're doing and that we are just getting started here. We are going to be massive. I feel like we're a volcano that is about to erupt. And with all of that comes all of this havoc that's behind the scenes of the maintenance and the unforeseen issues that we've had to deal with and pivot, like getting out houses when the bathrooms didn't work. I mean, that's not acceptable. So
Yeah.
And then that loses customer, trust in us. I mean, I received messages about that, and I do not blame one person. I feel the same. But there have been so many things out of our control, and we've just tried our best to maneuver along and still be open and still maintain a reputable business.
So you're located over on PCH by the Trader Joe's, and what is that? PCH and Second across the street, the big mall, right?
Right across the street from the big expanse that gets a lot of activity. This marketplace over here does not. It's like a ghost town over here. And just about everyone that comes over says, why are they not doing something with this space? And we know that there's housing coming. I knew on the way in the door when we were signing the lease that they were building housing across the street on both sides across from us. And that is going to be walk-in traffic for me. So we just have to hold on until those places get built. And it's even when they're starting construction over here, I will be over there saying, hey guys, you're off at 3. That's when we open for happy hour. Construction workers, come on over and visit us and have some happy hour with us. So we think that will change things. I'm not sure what's happening with some of the other buildings that are still standing. Tilted Kilt and Claim Jumper are still here. So I hope those turn into restaurants so that we could literally all feed off of each other.
Mm-hmm. You opened your bar, you said 2 years ago, so that would be 2024. How long before you actually opened were you in the planning process? The looking for space? What made you decide that this is the shopping center, this is the location, this is the part of Long Beach I want to be in?
Great question. So, I had been kind of seeking, maybe I open a sports bar dedicated to women's sports for a while, especially after I heard about the first one. So I cannot take credit of being the first of this concept. The very first one is called the Sports Bra. It's up in Portland, Oregon. Their tagline is "We support women." And they're now actually franchising, but I was talking to Jenny. I made my way to Jenny, the owner, Jenny Wynn, about 6 months into her being open. And I said, I love your concept. I want to do what you're doing down here in Long Beach. I think Long Beach is the perfect place to have this kind of a bar restaurant concept. And now I understand why she said, I am so not there. And I said, okay, that's fair. And I said, well, first right of refusal in Long Beach is mine. And we would joke about it. And then time went on and quite a bit of time. So that was probably in 23 when I first started talking to her. And then in September of 24, I spoke to a franchise owner and a franchisee. So he had both perspectives. And at the end of the conversation, he said, why would you go pay her when you could go do it on your own? So in September of 23, I opened the LLC. So it was the next day. And then I started looking at the calendar, what big events might be coming up next year. And holy smokes, the Olympics were coming in July. And now I had a target date. And this is where my project management kind of kicked in because I had no idea how I was going to get there, but I knew that that needed to be my grand opening date. And then it became, where's my space? So I happened to be going to Bevmo, which is right next door. We're attached to it. And before going to Bevmo, I stopped in Playa Amor, which is the space I'm sitting in now. It was then Playa Amor. And I bellied up to the bar and I looked around and said, there's one TV on the wall. But if I turn all around here, there are outlets up on this arc back here and there are no TVs. I could see it back here. This is a giant TV behind me. That was a huge mirror. And I'm sitting in what used to be a tortilla station. But so I could see that this could be flipped into a sports bar that would be not just a big box, but a really cool, unique environment and space. And I knew the owners wanted out. They were public about it. So I found my way to a real estate agent who reached out to them. We started talks. It sounded like things were going to be happening. And then in February of 24, they said, just kidding. We want you to actually buy our business. And I was not wanting to buy a Mexican restaurant. That is not what I was set out to do. So we backed off, but I could not get this space out of my head. I could see it. I could see everything. And so I just kept hoping, even though we were looking at other venues that just weren't checking boxes, I just kept hoping. And they came back around. And I think it was March. And here's my date of July 26, 2024 that I need to hit. And now it's March and I don't even have a signed agreement. And we finally got signed and keys June 1st. So we just passed the 2-year mark of getting keys a couple days ago. So it was June 1st that we got keys and we opened July 26th because we flipped. I mean, we did a whole facelift. And that getting the AV system in here and putting in garage doors and painting and just, oh my God, it was insane. But we did it. And we got our business license the day before we opened. So Thank you, Christina Duggan, for that.
Did you ever have any problems or any concerns about opening up a bar in a post-COVID world? I mean, we were still kind of in some restrictive areas during that time in 2023.
Yeah, one of my very close friends, I took her to lunch and told her what I was wanting to do. And she basically did everything to talk me out of it. And COVID was one of the reasons. And the other was that she knows people in the restaurant business and said, you shouldn't do this. But I just was hanging on so tightly to what my mission was and the belief in me that I just barreled through and I just decided I'm doing it anyway and I'll pivot. Playa More was open during COVID. They had this great outdoor area and they were still open. We have TVs that you could still watch if, and hopefully we'll never get there, but if something happened like that again, I feel confident in myself that we would figure it out. We would pivot yet again.
Yeah, that's amazing. We've been talking with Jax Diener from Watch Me Sports Bar here in Long Beach. Jax, as we start to wrap this episode up here, just kind of curious, if there's someone listening, someone watching that says, wow, she's so inspirational. Like, I want to do something just like her. What would you tell them? What advice would you give to them other than don't do it? What did you wish that you knew when you started that you didn't know now?
Oh, man, it's still, I think I still am trying to figure some of this out and how to really answer that. But I would say, I know me better than anyone else, and everyone's going to have something to say, and everyone will provide some questions, some doubts, or I would do it this way, or I would do it that way. But it's the belief in myself that got me to here. And whatever's coming next is all me hustling and pushing through. And that in itself builds confidence. So I think too, surround yourself with people that do believe in you also and trust you and want to give you guidance. I mean, I've got some angels that have been helping me along the way that had I not had them to bounce ideas off of, maybe things would be different for us. So I think surrounding yourself with people that are really building you up and giving you that support you need, but also listening to your instincts and believing in yourself because you know you better than anyone else. And you can make anything happen if you truly want to. I absolutely believe that.
Well, great advice. We've been talking with Jax Diener, Watch Me Sports Bar. Jax, if people wanted to check your sports bar out, they wanted to reach you directly, what's the best way to do that? How can people find you?
We have tons of ways. One, our Instagram account is pretty hopping. So watchme_sports bar. We've also got a Facebook account, watchmesportsbar.com, or that's our website. Facebook is Watch Me Sports Bar. And then you can hit me up on email, jaxd@watchmesportsbar.com. Happy to respond. So yeah, many ways. Or come in. Come say hi to me.
I was just going to say, tell your address again. Where are you located?
Yes, my address is 6527 East PCH, right next to Bevmo. So if you are about to walk into Bevmo, you won't see us because we're set back just a bit. So go to the left and you will see us and come on in. And we're open for brunch on the weekends at 10 too.
Ooh, you do bottomless mimosas?
We do. And we've got beer bust Sundays. I mean, we've got tons of specials going on all the time. Yeah.
All right. Jax, thanks so much for sharing your story and all of your insight. We really appreciate you. Can't wait to see you again in the near future. For everyone else, thanks for listening to this episode of The Catalyst, part of the Small Business Resiliency Series, and we will see you guys in the next episode.
Thank you so much for having me, Stuart. Appreciate you and the chamber a lot.
Cool. Thank you, Jax.
Thanks.